Thank you for being with us in this room. It's an opportunity for us to raise questions, share experience also on something which is often actually fascinating or producing questions to all of us, which is yoga. So we have here an opportunity to learn more and to also have an idea of what this approach can contribute to do for us and also for the people we care. Obviously, there is now a lot of evidence that yoga improves our well-being, improves balance, flexibility, strength, and yoga can also be extremely active on pain. It can have an impact on problems for older adults, work abilities, etc. So there is no doubt that yoga becomes an excellent component of care, and we need to integrate this component in our strategies from prevention to curative treatment. In our department, which is actually changing name, so it was known until last week as Service Delivery and Safety, and I think I can tell you now it's called Integrated Health Services. We definitely need to work on this kind of integration. Our unit responsible for traditional medicine has been working over the past years on two major tasks. First, the creation of standards to ensure the appropriate use of yoga around the globe. And second, we are also developing benchmarks for training in yoga, which should be available either this year or early next year. We are also working on new tools. For example, we are developing a mobile application for yoga training, which should be available in open access for free this year. So I'm particularly happy to have this conversation today. It's also an opportunity to thank the government of India for its constant support to this area of work in WHO. And I will now give the floor to Her Excellency.
Good morning. Dr. Mari Charlotte, Acting Director, WHO, Guruji Sri M, Yogi, mystic, social reformer, educationist. Probably, I could go on in his praise. I think he's a man of the times because he's not only been into yoga but gone far beyond that. Been teaching for over 21 years, providing free and high quality education to the rural children, promoting interfaith harmony, which is transcending religious, racial, geographical, cultural and ideological differences. Clearly a man of the times. As you know, yoga is actually the flavor of the day, if not the times, because 21st of June is the International Day of Yoga. That was at the initiative of the Government of India, the Prime Minister of India in 2014. So the General Assembly had adopted the resolution on yoga in 2014, and since 2015 we have been celebrating the International Day of Yoga. The UNGA resolution, as I had occasion to mention very recently, talks about wellness and the health of the global population. So in that context, today's talk on meditation is very topical. The science of yoga is very, very topical. In fact, there has been an explosion of interest in yoga. You will find that from different sources, people are delving into the science of yoga. I did come across a very interesting documentary called The Science of Yoga, and I would highly recommend that. That is uplift.tv, a fantastic two documentaries, The Science Behind Yoga and The Science Behind Breathing. In India, of course, the government has been making an attempt to integrate the study of yoga in a scientific fashion, so that we can put together the evidence and hopefully in collaboration with the WHO, where we already have an MOU with Ayush, the ministry which also handles yoga. And we do hope to take this process forward. You mentioned the M-Yoga, of course. In India, we have the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, which is actually the premier agency in India, which is looking into the science behind yoga. I don't want to stand between you and, of course, Guruji Shri M. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this.
There's this thing.
So there is this new book by Sri M. It's on meditation. The title of the book is On Meditation. We use this opportunity as a book launch. So I request Mrs. Shalini Chandar and Ambassador Shri Rajiv Chandar to receive a copy of the book from Sri M and launch the book. Thank you, sir.
So shall I hold it?
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Chandar and His Excellency, the Ambassador. I think we will move to the next agenda item. So Sri M will be talking on yoga, exploring the science. So we all know, mostly in the Western world, we know yoga as a system of asanas. It's been accepted very well in Western cultures, and I think a lot of people, we all know most of the asanas now in all Western countries. If you ask about asanas, there are many people practicing asanas, and it is a very well accepted physical fitness regime. But in India, yoga is more than just a system of physical fitness. And for WHO, we have one of the goals is attain health and well-being for 1 million people. So that's one of the goals. And then well-being is one system which can be attained by using yoga as a tool. The whole system of yoga has been around for more than 5,000 years. So I now hand over to Sri M to deliver his talk, Yoga Exploring the Science.
So, can you hear me? Oh, sorry. First of all, I thank the WHO for inviting me for this wonderful, I wouldn't say talk, conference, which also in the end we will have some question and answers. So I am thankful to Dr. Mary Charlotte, the director, who welcomed us all here in the beginning. I also thank His Excellency Ambassador Rajiv Chandar and Mrs. Shalini Chandar for being present on this occasion, presiding over it. And I must not forget that it was Dr. Yamuna who met me first in Switzerland when I came last time for a peace walk somewhere in a remote area, I don't know where, and suggested that maybe we should have a talk on the deeper aspects of yoga. Thank you very much. And of course, Dr. Gita, who I meet for the first time today, but I think he was also very keen that this happens here. Although I don't consider people from different states as different, I must say that both these friends belong to Kerala, from where I come. An additional advantage for me. Anyway, so the subject today is yoga, exploring the science. Okay. Now, I know I've been traveling for many years in many parts of the West. And I see that there are lots of people who are interested in the practice of yoga. When I say practice of yoga, I mean mostly physical yoga, which is the yoga asanas. And some of them, I'm just coming from Moscow now, I saw some of the young people in Moscow practicing physical yoga even better than what we do in India. Honestly, I'm telling you, it was so good. So they have trained themselves to do it. So now that's one part of yoga. Now the idea today for me would be to tell you that yoga is not just an art, it's a science. It's a scientific discipline which one has to go into very carefully, step by step. And the results are for you to see. Do. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So do and figure out how effective it is. This is the practical aspect of yoga. Now, there is a tendency to classify yoga as Patanjali yoga. Because Patanjali was one of the most important compilers of yogic teachings into sutras. Sutras are aphorisms and they need somebody to open them up and describe. They're very short and small, edited. You can't edit them anymore. So when you say sutra, it means something which needs to be interpreted. So Patanjali put the entire knowledge available to him at that point into the form of aphorisms. And there have been many commentaries on this, on the practice and theory of yoga, both. Practice, theory and experience of yoga. It's a very comprehensive text. It takes a long time to really sit down and do the whole thing, but people usually are satisfied with the asanas, so that's not so difficult. Now, why I mention this is because it appears that yoga is associated from Patanjali down and not before. I wanted to tell you that this science called yoga has been already mentioned maybe 800 or 1000 years ago in the Upanishads, which form the kind of essence of the teachings of ancient Indian philosophy, the Upanishad. If you go to the Shveta Ashvatara Upanishad, or to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, or to the Prashna Upanishad, there are many Upanishads. We won't go into the meaning of Upanishad. We need to have a separate talk on Upanishad. We can't get into this. But I'm only trying to tell you that it's very ancient, much more ancient than Patanjali, because Patanjali is actually post-Yogacara, school of Buddhism. Though he might have gathered something also from those texts, can't deny that. But it goes back to ancient times. And I want to say something in Sanskrit. Don't worry, you don't have to by heart. But this is from the Upanishads. Maybe 500 years before Patanjali, perhaps, roughly. This is from the Upanishad, and it goes like this. I link it with why it is important to yoga to understand this. It says, Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamaduchyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. Unfortunately, all this was written at a time when Sanskrit was a known language. Today it has become an unknown language, almost. In India, I keep telling all our education department people, introduce a chair. Berlin has 2 chairs in Sanskrit. We don't have. Anyway, that's a different matter. So, what it means is, Purna is a word that indicates completeness, fullness. Full, F-U-L-L, fullness. So the statement starts with Purnamada, which means that is full. Purnamidam. It's not only that which is full, this is also full. Purnat Purnamaduchyate. This fullness has come from that fullness. Purnasya. If you take this fullness out of that fullness, it doesn't reduce. That fullness remains full forever. Now this is not a mysterious statement. The nearest you can get to it in scientific terms, in physics, is Einstein's theory that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. You can change it from one form to another or one state to another, but it's the same. Nobody has disproved it till now, so we need to accept it. Who knows? But so this energy, energy that is whole, W-H-O-L-E, energy that is full, is supposed to be the origin of this entire universe, including us human beings. Somehow we think we are the most important part of the universe. No, sorry, there are many other things which are very important in this universe. The animals, the little worms, everything is important because it's a network, vast network. One cannot do without the other. It's all one. So this source, according to the Upanishad, is a fullness which is expanded and multiplied into different units. One unit has become different units, but the catch here is that even after becoming thousands and billions of units, it remains the same. In the sense that fullness is not lost, and the good news is the Upanishad says, not only is that full, this is also full because it has come from fullness, but we say we don't see the fullness in us. We see we are always incomplete. We are always looking for fullness. Why would we look for fullness if we are already full? We won't. The entire universe, our work, our life, everything depends upon trying to find this fullness. We are always looking for it in some way or the other. I said today I have one car, if I have two, I might be happy, so my fullness will be satisfied. I am single, if I get married, well, I will be happy. I'm not so sure, but I'm married by myself. So, and so on and so forth. So, we think that by having things in the external world and keep on increasing and gathering these things, it's possible to attain fullness. Unfortunately, it's not, because even after we have gathered everything, we need to go at some point. So, that is the fullness. So as long as we are here, okay, fine. Now the corollary to this is that there exists a fullness in mind and fullness in, not only in mind but also in the consciousness, which is given to every one of us, not given by somebody but naturally is inborn, intrinsic to our existence. Unfortunately, we are in such fragments, our minds are so fragmented, and this, you're that, so we're different. I'm Indian, you're Swiss, well, we are same, but we are different. I always keep saying that when it's United Nations, it already means there are two nations which are coming together. Why don't we say united humanity? So what I'm trying to say is that fullness, according to the Upanishad, is an intrinsic part of every human being. Maybe of other creatures, we don't know, but at least we know, we are aware. And it is to acquire this and achieve this that we labor all our lives. Now, Upanishad is basically like a theoretical physics. You know, there are theories of, let's say, quantum physics. Theory. There are theories of physics. It's very interesting that when we started studying science, everybody was almost sure that everything is understood. We had the Newtonian physics, which said everything obeys certain laws of nature. Every action has an equal and opposite, and so on. Then we advanced, and then we went to quantum physics, where the minor quantum particles are looked at. And when we reach there, we are most uncertain what is happening. From certainty to uncertainty. Usually it should be from uncertainty to certainty. If you ask any physicist who is doing advanced quantum physics, he will tell you that one of the most important laws of physics which are now known, at least known, is that nobody knows if the smallest quantum of matter is a particle or a wave, nobody knows. In fact, you can't see a quantum unit, you cannot see it even with an electron microscope. You can only see it through its reactions in the field. You can't see it with your naked eye, but you can guess or you can understand by its reactions. What happened is, it's very interesting, that when you think a quantum unit is a particle, and while you're observing it, it begins to behave like a wave. You think it's a wave, and you observe it, it's behaving like a particle. In fact, David Bohm, the great physicist, even went to the extent of saying that perhaps it is the observer who is more important than what is being observed. Now, when such a statement is made, we are going into the Upanishad and the practices of yoga. Because here, the subjective observer becomes the most important, at least when you're practicing. Till you figure out that the subject and object are actually not different. This is an artificial barrier that has been created by the mind. To start with, the subject is very important. It depends on the subject. And therefore, as I said, the Upanishad is like the physics of theory, of course, proved through mathematical means and so on. But you can't, for instance, take a counterparticle in your hands. It's not possible. Yoga is the practical system by which you come to understand this first subjectively and then objectively. So we start with the subject. Okay. So you must be thinking, where does yoga come in? You have not said anything. We will get there. So, the Bhagavad Gita, we have a text called, I'm avoiding the word scriptures because in the Indian context, it is difficult to say scripture because then you ask which scripture. There are many inputs. It's not as if there is one scripture, this is scripture. From the Vedas down to the Bhagavad are called scriptures. So scriptures is a general term. You can say Bhagavad, or you can say Upanishad, or you can say Yoga Shastra. You can do one of them. So anyway, the Bhagavad Gita is a very well-known explanation of the Upanishads in simple terms for us to understand. Because some of the Upanishads, what if somebody said that is fullness, this is fullness? What do you mean by that? And you can say I am not full, but I'm still hungry. So, the Bhagavad Gita, in the form of a dialogue between the teacher and the taught, we can even take away the names Krishna and Arjuna, teacher and the taught, is a dialogue on the problems of life, who we are, how to find our inner essence of completeness or fullness, and it is in the form of a dialogue. So, in the ancient teachings from 1,000 years ago, perhaps or more, the ancient country that we have in India has been involved in dialogues. Anything to be found out, there is a dialogue. And a dialogue in Sanskrit is called a samvad. You cannot have a samvad with one person, then it becomes a monologue. Samavad means two people sitting together and trying to ask questions, answer, figure out the truth. And the Bhagavad Gita is a prime example of this. And one of the things about it which distinguishes it from the other Upanishads is that it also is a practical text. Now, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, every chapter says, this is Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita's Upanishad. So this is the study of the Upanishad. Brahma Vidyayam, the knowledge of the supreme reality, ultimate reality. Yoga Shastra, it is also the science of yoga by which you can attain. What I am trying to say, that all these philosophical concepts are not just in the realm of philosophy, there is something which can be understood and experienced by a mind that understands what yoga means. That's what I am trying to say. So it's a very experimental science. It's not just out there. And yoga is the actual laboratory But you can work these things out. Now the WHO is involved in Ayurveda, I know, for some years now. Now the other thing about Ayurveda, it's not a system of medicine only. The word Ayurveda, Ayu means life. And Veda means life science. It's not just medicine, it's not prescribed medicine, it's life science. And if you're taking a particular medicine for Ayurveda, and if you're not following what they call dinachara, or how you should live, what you should eat and what you should not eat, then that medicine has no effect or has hardly, not too much effect, 50%. So, in the same way, yoga is basically first understand the structure of the mind and how the mind is related to the body. What I'm saying this because, why I'm saying this is because according to the latest definition which the WHO also has, wellness is part of the whole thing. Not only physical health but also wellness. Now wellness means the mind basically. Somebody may be physically completely healthy and still not be well in the mind. So you can't say the person is well. So wellness is an important factor. Yoga is precisely that which deals with his wellness. I'm not talking about wellness pass. You want to spend a lot of money, good idea. But what I'm trying to say is that it's to do with how to go into the different layers of the mind. Now we come to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Because they were the earliest codified versions, edited understanding of what yoga is. It's much older than the Yoga Sutras, but Patanjali was the first. Now here, we get into a definition of what yoga is. A very scientific definition of what yoga is. I would say that we need more experiments also in the physical laboratories with yogis to figure out if it really works. And then you say, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you can deny it, no problem. So, I think there are some experiments going on in some parts of the world in laboratories. And the only people they could access were the Buddhist monks. So there are some people who are working with them. Anyway, Patanjali defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the science or method by which the distractions of the mind are removed. When you say vritti, vritti means it's like dropping a pebble in a pond, there are some ripples. And our mind is constantly in ripples. It's 1 minute here and the next second there and so on and so forth. And there is a conflict. I want this, I don't want this. I want that. I like this person, I don't like. So there is, all this is together called the vritti. Likes and dislikes, anger and so on. Patanjali defines the word vritti means these distractions and conflicts of the mind. So it's actually yoga is a form of getting rid of conflicts of the mind. And nirodha means to get rid of, to wipe out the distractions of the mind. So why would one do that? It has been discovered that the mind which is usually distracted and in conflict is also wasting a lot of energy on its distractions. A lot of energy is lost. Morning I get up, I'm all energetic and fine. Then I begin to think I have to go to office, this boss has to sit and look. Half my energy is over. It's a distraction. So, chitta vritti nirodha means the aim of yoga is methods by which you can get rid of these distractions and settle the mind down in a tranquil state. A mind that is tranquil and settled down without distraction is a powerful mind, a happy mind and a calm mind. So, how much time do we have? How many minutes more?
50 minutes.
Good. So, we can work on that when we have questions, if you have anything else to discuss. So, therefore, the methods adopted for bringing about a state of mind which is not distracted and therefore not losing energy, which is fully there and which is also calm and tranquil. When you say, generally when you say a lot of energy, then you're bubbling over, you want to do something. No, calm, quiet, tranquil. Then you're like it's almost like nuclear energy inside you in a peaceful way. And this can be used for various purposes. Not so much for yourself, for others. It can be used for peace, it can be used for many. And when the mind has reached that tranquil state, which is called samadhi, in the yogic terminology, it also becomes one-pointed, probably more intelligent, has the capacity to think without distractions, and also perform your worldly, whatever activities you do, in a much more perfect manner. So it's not only a spiritual, it's also reflected in your day-to-day activity. You like to put things in order. So because the mind has become ordered, it's no more running here and there. So now for this, they start of course with physical. Therefore, the yoga system of Patanjali is described as Ashtanga Yoga, which means the 8 limbs of yoga. We won't go into the details, we can discuss it later. But the limbs are Yama, Niyama, branches of yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Samadhi is a culmination, of course. The rest are the ways to. So, these are the 8 parts. Therefore, it's called Ashtanga Yoga, which means the yoga of 8 limbs or 8 branches. What are the first 2 limbs? Yama, Niyama. Rules and regulations that one needs to follow. For any scientific discipline, there are some rules and regulations to be followed. If you have a microscope and you want to look, you need to keep the lens, you need to adjust it properly in the same way. Yama niyamas are rules and regulations to be followed so that a human being can begin to explore into the mind. And they are very simple. There are many yama niyamas, but I can put it in one sentence, which is moderation in everything. No extremes. In fact, Krishna describes it beautifully in the Gita. Says this yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little or sleeps too much or sleeps too little and so on. Which means if you're going to have a glass of wine, have one. Stop it there. So, moderation is very, very important. And in all ways, in entertainment, in life, in work, in eating, in drinking, in sleep. If you eat too much, it's connected to deep sleep actually, you sleep more. So, I'm just giving a general description of yama niyamas, although they are particular. And go into the Yoga Sutras. Also in this book I have mentioned things about this. Then 2 are over. Then you come to asana. Asanas are generally classified as physical postures, but they're not merely physical postures. Asanas are not done to build your muscles. I'm not saying they're done to destroy your muscles, but they're certainly not meant only for your muscles. They're much more than that. They are done to improve your circulation of your body, especially the upper parts which don't get enough blood circulation. You know this upside down posture? There the blood circulates more in this area. Because it needs personal training. If you have high BP and if you do Shirsasana, that's it. You need supervision. And other asanas which have an effect, asanas which have an effect on the endocrine system. The ductless glands which are in the body, starting from the pituitary, which is the master gland, which controls everything. Asanas are ways by which you can actually control the amount of hormones injected into the bloodstream, not exactly quantitatively, so that you can adjust your moods at your will. The other aspect. And believe me, even if you're physically fit, if your mind is not fit, life is not worth living. So, somebody said, is life worth living? And the answer was, it depends on the liver. Anyway, so asanas. So asanas are not only physical exercises, they also are to do with the endocrine system. Also, in every asana, you tense your muscles and then you release them. When you tense your muscles and you release them, energy flows into that system. So this, I'm just giving you generally, we have only another 5 minutes to go. So, and then from asanas, and the definition of asana is very interesting. Patanjali says, Thirasukam asana. Any posture in which you can sit or lie for a length of time is considered to be without pain, is considered your asana. Thirasukha. Sukha means happiness. When you get constant happiness in a posture, then it is called an asana. Thirasukam asana. And then from there we come to the pranayama, the next. Pranayama is breathing. It's not breathing actually. Prana is the life energy. And yama means the rules and regulations of how it functions. What are the laws of prana? And fortunately, the prana is connected to our breath. It's not the breath, but it is connected to the breath. So that by changing the rhythm of your breath patterns, you can change the way the prana or life energy works in your system. All these can be experimented actually under laboratory conditions. Why we don't know, I don't know why it's not. It's so. Now, I give you a small example. How your moods and your breath are interlinked. If you're in an agitated mood, angry or I need to strangle this guy, you just close your eyes and watch your breath. It's actually very agitated. Irregular breathing, no rhythm, proper rhythm. On the other hand, if you like to listen to beautiful music, in the Indian context you're listening to, say, Pandit Jasraj, or in the European, we are listening to the symphonies of Beethoven, something. You're fully enjoying it. Watch your breath. Rhythmic, quiet, no agitation. So the entire science of Pranayama was born from this understanding that if the moods regulate your breath, can we regulate the breath and regulate your moods? This can be tested too. Change your breathing pattern, your moods change. So, this is pranayama. How to bring about a quiet mind to pranayama. And then there is pratyahara, which means the capacity, the yogi. When I say yogi, I think everybody can be yogis. You don't need to have something like this. This is my style. So, a yogi has the capacity, develops the capacity to fix his attention or her attention on something completely, one point. And at any given moment, switch it off and fix it somewhere else. Normally what happens, when we fix attention somewhere, we can't take it off. Then it becomes an obsession. It's not attention anymore. So the yogi knows how to switch off and switch on. When the yogi is driving, he is not meditating. You know what will happen. And when the yogi is meditating, he is not thinking about his car at all. So this capacity of withdrawing and fitting whenever you want your senses is called pratyahara. Pratyahara. And then the next three, I'm going to complete with this, is dharana, dhyana and samadhi, which is usually in the English language mentioned together as meditation. But in the Yoga Sutra, it is split into three: dharana, dhyana and samadhi. Dharana is the capacity to be one-pointed on an object or an idea or a sound or a symbol or any one of these. When the dharana continues for a long time, then it becomes what we normally call meditation. Dhyana. It's called dhyana. And when you're so absorbed in it that you even forget yourself, there is only that. Then it is samadhi. Now there are different forms of samadhi, different kinds of samadhi. Samadhi simply means states of consciousness which are understood and experienced as the mind becomes quieter and quieter, and as one point is. And ultimately, when one reaches samadhi, Patanjali says, if a person enters into that state, which is actually a breaking free from all conditioning, into the source and core of consciousness, then when he comes back or she comes back, he cannot be the same person anymore. Physically, yes, but not, because you come back after an experience which is mind, I wouldn't say mind shattering, but we have to find a new word, mind massaging. Because it is blissful in itself. And the yogi is able to go back to it whenever. So it starts with rules, regulations, asanas, and then proceeds step by step to that state which is called samadhi, where one realizes the meaning of what the Upanishad said, Purnamada Purnamidam, that is full, this is also full. So, taking a human being towards fulfillment in consciousness, as apart from only fulfillment in physical needs, this is also required. That is the ultimate, is the aim of yoga. And believe me, as I talk to you today, it's a step-by-step, systematic process. There are other means of yoga like devotion, emotional yoga, bhakti and so on. But yoga, as we are talking about today, they have their own importance. I'm not denying that. It's a step-by-step, systematic practice by which one can test oneself, or the teacher can test you at every step, and you know where you go. And therefore, I implore the WHO to do something about making this into a scientific, not only the asanas, which you are already, I know, make the study of the mind, which is the central part of yoga, because it's going to be one of the most important things for the future generation especially. While you can make use of digital excellences, the human beings are turning completely digital, which we need to work on at some point and see how this can be strong. So, this is why I'm here. Thank you once again. Om Shanti Shanti. Peace.
Thank you very much. I think your words have been meeting with a number of reflections ongoing, and I was thinking it's also good to be reinforced by these kind of approaches when you mentioned or you alluded to WHO's definition of health, so we can be reinforced by a common understanding of a holistic definition, or more recent strategies on how to provide better care with an integrated people-centered approach. So this is extremely encouraging. And in another way, we can also try to experiment this kind of approach in our daily life, starting with our daily life in WHO, this period of transformation. So I'm sure my colleagues will be happy to know more about this. But you insisted that this is a dialogue, so this is the moment for a dialogue. The floor is open to all of you.
May I say something before this? That if at any point you decide to have a laboratory condition, not you but someone connect you on yoga and need a guinea pig and
So we have this online tool. It's an app, pigeonhole.at. So we've looked at the questions and we've given the code. I don't know how many of you logged on to that. So So we have a few questions here, and we don't want to limit ourselves only to this. I think so. We'll have one question from Pigeonhole, and then maybe we can have an open floor kind of thing where So alternatively, we can take these available questions and your own questions which you may want to ask. So looking at Pigeonhole right now, I see that there are two questions which have got some votes. So maybe I can start by asking one of those, and then we can ask at random. One of you can ask a question, then we come back to Pigeonhole. So we should be able to complete a few questions before we close for today. So shall we go that way? Yeah? Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sri M, for your talk on yoga, and we're looking forward to see how this goes ahead in the coming days. So the universe is energy, and it's a manifestation of energy, and we are all small units in that. So I see a question here, but we'll come back to that later. Let me take the one which has got more votes. So here is a question. How can the United Nations as an organization benefit from yoga as a holistic practice to improve itself? So this question is asking how can yoga be used to improve the United Nations?
Oh my God. This is a question okay, let me put it this way. I think it would be a wonderful idea if the United Nations gets some time for its people who are involved in it to go through some of the texts on yoga to start with. They need not start with the faith in them. They can start with a very skeptical mind, it's okay. But they should at least be exposed to some of the texts or the simple exposition of these texts, one of these. And then, if some of them decide that, oh, this is only a textbook, I need to practice, then I think some kind of practice can be introduced, which is fairly simple and not too complicated, and which does not mean that someone should leave their offices and UN and go off to the cave in the forest. Who can sit down in your own bedroom and practice in your own office. So it can start with simple techniques which people can learn, experiment for themselves, and if they see it is good, then try to implement it in some way. But I'm sure the basis is that the United Nations, I know some good people who are already going through this and so on, to read the texts which are available in simple language, since the United Nations doesn't teach Sanskrit, so they look at the translations and try to understand the concepts first and then maybe bring it into practice. And it is very necessary, I think, actually, since you're saying this, because we are trying to unite nations, and unless we have unite our mind, which is so fragmented, I think only half the work can be done if we don't integrate our own mind. Is a mind like the nations, the different fragments of the mind should be brought together in a holistic. We should think about it, at least.
Thank you, Shriyam. So WHO has guidelines on many topics, but the process of guideline development is a long and protracted process. So I don't know.
Look, all I'm saying is it's a suggestion.
Okay, so we can take one question from the audience now before we go back to pigeonhole questions. Yeah, please go ahead.
I just wanted to understand what is actually the true nature of the mind. On the one hand, it's the mantra mind. There is also the samadhi mind. So what is the natural mind? What is the true nature of the mind?
The nature of the mind, as it is now, because you know only that, we know only that, we don't know what it is in that state, right? Is that it's always in movement, always in motion, agitated, not always agitated. It kind of goes between two poles, agitation and calmness, then agitation, then back to. And this that it's so distracted that it can't stay with one thing for long and keeps moving. This is the state of mind as it is now. I'm not talking about samadhi. Okay. So what happens to the mind which has attained the aim of practicing yoga? What happens to that mind? What happens to this mind is, first, it is at least less distracted to start with. Less distracted. It learns how to remain tranquil in the midst of all circumstances. You know how we operate in this life? We depend on public opinion and then we alter our minds according to that. Then, if somebody says, oh, M is a wise man, I'm elated. I mean, the normal state of mind, I'm saying. I'm not saying what it's kind of elated, I am on cloud 9. But if somebody says, oh, this is all nonsense, it's a fool, what happens to me? Normal. It doesn't happen to me. I'm down. I mean, the depressed, going towards what next? Now this depression is such a big word now. We're going towards that. And our lives are generally between these two. Sometimes. So there is a beautiful statement in the Gita. Tulyaninda Sutirmani, which means the yogi is one for whom praise and blame are the same. He moves according to his understanding and not according to what people are saying. Of course, if somebody sees you are doing a wrong thing, it's good to point out. That's an improvement. But so what happens is the person becomes self-sufficient first. That's the first step. And in the midst of all circumstances, if you can keep your mind tranquil, in fact, if the leaders can do that, there will be no war. So this is how it begins. The ultimate state, according to yoga, the nature of the mind can be seen only when the mind has become absolutely quiet and the waves have subsided. Now, in that state, you could compare it with a pond, a water body, which has no ripples. You know, when you sit and throw a pebble on the pond, and there are many ripples coming, and it goes on expanding. When everything stops and you're no more throwing a pebble down there, then what happens? It becomes clear and placid, tranquil. Then if you look in, you can actually see your face. With the ripples you can't. So the yoga science or the yoga philosophy says, when your mind is therefore through the practice of yoga freed of distractions, it comes to its original state of calmness. It's not produced. It's original state when all these things are removed, when the mirror is cleaned out. Then you see the reflection of your true self, which is the core of your consciousness, which is a part of that fullness that we talked about. It's you, not me. Understand?
Yes, thank you, Shreya. So we go to the next pigeonhole question. So I see here a question which has got two things. So one is about alleviation of pain. You know, so as you know, in the health area, in medicine, pain alleviation is a topic by itself, and we have so many drugs, and the entire pharma sector moves on that. So this question asks about pain alleviation, but it also mentions Om chanting. So I think you didn't mention anything about mantras. You know, like mantras are a codified form of energy. So this question asks, what are the benefits of Om chanting and prayer and other forms of yogic management towards alleviating physical pain? So it's asking how can we use mantras, Om chanting and other yogic forms towards managing and alleviating physical pain.
Let me at the outset say that yoga is more concerned with alleviating mind pain than physical pain. I'm just making a statement first. We'll go to this. Basically, yoga is dealing more with alleviating the pain that is caused to the mind. And generally, when your mind pain is removed, I don't know, I'm calling a new word, mind pain, is removed, the physical pain also to a great extent becomes non-existent. Now, this has to be better done as a preventive rather than when it has happened already and you're trying to cure it. So, if you start at a young age and do this, what you call removing pain from the mind, by understanding how to do it, then there is very little chance of a physical pain, except when there's an accident, somebody falls. I mean, this pain is there, of course. And also, at least the pain of, that we carry in our mind because we are hurt by somebody's words and so on, this is cleared out. And the mind becomes free. As far as physical pain, and there also Om is important. I mean, not only Om, there are, in the ancient teachings, sound has been of great importance. Not as a word or the meaning of the word, but the sound. And this is another aspect which can be experimented upon actually. And that the sound has a certain effect on your thoughts and also on your cells and also on your body. Therefore on your body. So Om is supposed to be, even though it's written in Sanskrit, because in those days the language available was Sanskrit, but it's actually not a word, it's a sound. It's a primordial sound. In another context, it's been referred to as the word, the sound. Now this sound, the most important sound according to Yoga, which can be used to bridge the gap between pain and painlessness, is the sound Om. So Om is chanted in different ways. There are many ways of chanting Om. One is to chant with A, U and Ma, like Om. And people sit together and chant. Not alone, but sitting together, chanting together. It has an impact, not only on the mind, but also to a great extent on the body. The other is, the other Om, which is a short Om with more, is much more emphasis on the last syllable of Ma, like Om. Now, this Ma sound is actually by its very nature pain relieving. If you go to a hospital and see people who are convalescing, the most common sound you hear, they don't know Om, but it's like that sound. Even when we agree with something, we say this sound, the last syllable of Om, immediately brings about relief in the system, in the body. It also brings about a certain relief in the mind, but the mind and the body are so interrelated. When you take a drug, it doesn't actually take away the pain. It touches some part of the mind, of the brain, which refuses to accept the pain. Now today, in California and many states of the US, they're using cannabis. Right? Cannabis as a medicine, not for entertainment, but as a medicine, to relieve pain. We are saying there are ways and means by which yoga, especially the chanting of various sounds, Om is just one. There are other sounds like Reem, Clean, and so on, which if studied properly and I would say even recorded and given on headphones for people to hear, would certainly help in bringing about pain and inflammation. But they're also meant for the mind to be relieved of distractions. Good. And in fact, if you are in the state called Samadhi, no body pain is of any consequence. You feel temporary. You come back to the constant.
Can I challenge you a little bit and ask a little more on that? Like, how does the sound reduce pain? I mean, is it some kind of quantum physics? Is it by vibrations? Is it by some changes at the atomic level or at the molecular level?
We understand how to work on all these levels. If you do properly, how you know how to do it in time, you can also bring about changes in your cells. Now this is something which needs to be found out. At the moment, you might be a tall twig. But it's a fact that if you know how to do it and properly, you can bring about changes from the cellular level onwards. But how it works is very interesting. First it works on the mind. And from the mind into the body. Not the other way around. So, according to yoga and according to what we call yoga tantra, the human body has a set of, yoga has its own anatomy physiology. It's a little different. But there are centers in the human system which actually are where the physical plexuses are. You know, in anatomy physiology, you have these plexuses formed from the parasympathetic nervous system, coming from the central nervous system, the right vagus nerve, the left vagus, and then they all come together in a cluster which is called a plexus. So there are many plexuses. In the Satchakra Nirupana, which is a discussion on the different centers of energy in the human body, which has been beautifully translated by a retired judge of the Calcutta High Court, who was English, who was British, his name was John Grove. He translated Satchakra Nirupana under the title of The Serpent Power. It's one of the best, beautiful translations. Of course, you can't practice reading the book, you need help. So, these are 7 centers which are in us, and the sounds are meant basically to activate these centers. As these centers are activated, pain elimination is a minor factor here. As they are activated, then the human mind expands from ordinary to something more. So, from a 3-dimensional to dimensions which the mind generally cannot conceive of. And the energy that you get is drawn from there. It's not just physical energy. It's drawn from there and expressed through these centers, which are called the chakras. And when you say chakra, it means rotating, something that is a wheel. Wheel is called a chakra, which means that's the centers where the energy, plus and minus. And I say plus and minus, not in the negative sense or the positive sense of the term, but like cathode and anode in an electric charge. That's what, when these together come and rotate in a particular direction, in a particular speed, then it becomes a vortex. This is called a chakra. And it is there in the human system. So the sounds are also to influence these centers, so that from there you can draw upon a lot of energy, not only healing but also constructive and creative. And this is about all I can say.
Should we take another question from the audience? And yeah, please go ahead.
I wonder about your perception of what was mentioned earlier, how yoga became very much flavor at times in Western countries. And I wonder about your perception vis-a-vis the somewhat incomplete teachings of yoga, mostly limited to asanas and sometimes pranayama, so certainly not the 8 limbs of yoga usually taught, more the philosophy of the history, and it has somewhat become a huge market as well in Western countries. So I wondered about your perception of it as a negative trend or positive trend vis-a-vis just yoga in general. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
The statement I made was not a negative statement. It's nice to have a good body and a strong body and a graceful body. Everybody agrees on that. And I'm only saying, of course, there are pockets. There are people I see who are also involved in deeper aspects. It's not only that. However, what I mentioned was that is the most popular concept of yoga nowadays in the West. That's what I meant. And not in a derogatory way. It's not what I said. I said, but there are many more things to it. Not just that much. That's what I was. Well, it's good to have. Look, I also practice physical yoga, I said, from the age of 10 till now I'm 69, 70. I practice about 20 minutes every day, asanas. I'm not talking about the higher aspects of yoga. Asana, then a little bit of pranayama included in that. And I find that it helps me a great deal in many ways. So all I'm saying is, can we now go further up and look at the other mind aspects? This is what I was saying. If you don't look at the mind aspects of yoga, even if you're involved only in the physical aspects of yoga, that's fine. Stay on, because it's good for us. The yoga also believes that a physically fit body is also fit for going deeper into the other states of yoga. It means a healthy body, a healthy mind. Well, sometimes it works the other way around. A healthy mind and healthy body also.
So I hope it answered the question. I mean, just to challenge a little bit on this. So if we continue doing only asanas and we do not get into practice of any of the other limbs of yoga, there's no harm. It's still beneficial. Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say that's a good place to start. I know I'm a little bit concerned when people say, I'm only interested in a higher meditation. I don't want to do any asana. It's laziness. Right? So, I'm not saying that people who don't do are bad people. That's not what I'm saying. But it's usually kind of inertia. And inertia is to be avoided. Since we are on the subject, may I take a little more time? Now, yoga, the darsana, the philosophy of yoga, is derived from Sankhya. Kapila's Sankhya, which of course is an atheistic philosophy. We won't go into that now. Now, Kapila's, and the terminology used in yoga as well in Vedanta is many times from the Sankhya. Because Sankhya is very good. It's a big body of understanding, literature. And the terminology generally used in yoga and Vedanta also is the three gunas, which is sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva guna, rajo guna and tamo guna. Now when you say sattva, it means tranquility that comes through goodness and purity. Sattva, purity, goodness, tranquility. Tamoguna means inertia, laziness, not wanting to. Very often people are so tamasic and they mistake it for sattva. Think, I don't want to do anything, I'm already up there. Actually it's inertia. So it is a tamoguna, it's not the sattva. And to get to sattva when you are in the tamoguna, there is an interim thing called rajoguna, activity. So when the mind which is tamasic begins to become active in what is called rajoguna, then the mind is then transformed into sattva. So I'm not saying that it's fine to do physical yoga asanas. If you don't do yoga asanas, you're not committing a sin or anything. But I think it's still good to do it if you can. I'm trying to devise ways, like people cannot stand on their heads. Okay, fine. All yoga is not standing on your head. There are other ways of doing yoga. In fact, I went to visit a friend in Germany. You know how the Germans. So I went to his studio. He said, I do asanas every day. And I was surprised to see a gadget with which he does Shirsasana. I said, can you really do it? He said, no. How do you do it? He had a long bench-like thing with a headrest on it, wood. And he would lie down on it and belt himself here and here. And then press a switch and the thing. See how technology comes in. So, just an observation.
Thank you, Shriyam. I think we are moving towards closing of this, but maybe we can take time to ask one more question. So from Pigeonhole, I have a question here. It's not very clear, but I'll ask it because it's important and also related to your book. So this question it says, is yoga connected to consciousness, and how can we measure consciousness? So, I mean, the question is not very clear, but that's an opportunity for you to explain more.
Of course, yoga The ultimate aim of yoga is to reach the core of your consciousness. Yes. But if you ask me, can consciousness be measured? In fact, the idea is to find out the true essence of your consciousness, which is immeasurable. Therefore, the act itself is not to measure, but to find something that is immeasurable. Progress can be sometimes measured by the state of your mind, yes. But not consciousness as such. You can't measure consciousness. You can measure the progress that the mind has made towards understanding this consciousness. That can be measured. How? I think a person who is seriously involved in the practice of yoga, not only for physical, but for the higher levels of yoga, is a person who will remain tranquil in the midst of all circumstances. If somebody says, it's very easy to sit here for me and smile and say, oh, I'm very happy and so on. When I go out, I have to see how I react with people outside on the road or when I'm driving. That can be measured. If I say I'm peaceful and I curse the man who overtook me, I'm not peaceful. Measured. You know what I mean? So, these can be measured from how you manifest your state of mind. These things can be measured. Consciousness per se in its totality, the very fact that we say in totality, means it is immeasurable. It cannot be measured. And the great wonderful thing is that in true essence we have a spark of that immeasurableness. This is the wonderful thing.
So there's one more question which we'll take and then we'll close the session. So this question is somewhat generic, but I think it touches on the all-pervasive nature of yoga. This question says, in this historical moment of many crises, how to transmit hope to the hopeless. How to transmit hope to the hopeless. So I think maybe that's an opportunity to touch on some of the prayers which are chanted, which look for well-being of the whole world.
Well, prayers are chanted, but activity is necessary. Some action is required. Simply by praying, chanting prayers, it won't work. I have seen this happening, that there are people who organize huge yajnas for peace, but after 10 minutes there is war. So I'm not into this. However, it's a good idea to have chantings and group meetings and meditations where you project the idea of peace onto the world. It's a good idea. But it will work only when you take it out from the meditation hall and practice it outside. Very important. Otherwise, see what happens, generally what happens is, I don't want to do any action to bring about a change. So what do? I sit and say I'm meditating for peace. It doesn't work. Well, you can meditate for peace, good idea. You start with peace here in your heart. And if your heart is peaceful, then you are able to transmit it to others. True, I agree with that. But it also should be accompanied by action, which is the whole theory about karma yoga. In the Gita, Krishna preaches, some people say he preaches war. I say, look, it's not war, it's action. Action is required. When you say war, that means the action should be taken up on a war footing. I mean, not war in that sense. Even the demand for the need for peace should be taken up on a war footing. When I say war footing, please, no weapons. It's just that you have to act on it in your everyday life and in outside your life, in society. Meanwhile, conferences, chanting, all these are wonderful, but they have to result in concrete action. Otherwise, it generally doesn't work.
Thank you, Shriyam. I thought there would be many questions on karma, but there aren't, and we have run out of time now. So you missed your opportunity to ask about karma, but
Shriyam, difficult thing to answer.
Yes, So Shriyam is also safe now since karma was not touched upon. But thank you all. So I hand over to Dr. Geeta to say the vote of thanks and then we'll close.
Thank you, Dr. Srimana. In fact, before I say the vote of thanks, I would like to invite Madam Shalini Chandra to hand over this gift. Take this.
Sure. Sure.
The year 2018 was when I joined WHO, and that is when WHO came up and published the General Program of Work 13, which we are going to follow for the next 5-6 years continuously. One of the strategic statements in the General Program of Work of WHO is ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. That's something just quite interesting because 2018 was also the year when Sophia, like this robot, which had artificial intelligence, became a citizen of UAE. It's quite interesting because and then this writer whose name is Yuval Noah Harari in his book says that the difference between machine and human is going to be assessed only through consciousness. So if something has consciousness, it is not machine. If it doesn't have consciousness, then it is of course it's a machine. So it is something like very important for us to understand consciousness and to reach the aim of well-being. It is an effort from WHO's part that we want to follow that strategic idea of reaching well-being. And one of the reasons why when Dr. Imuna suggested that we should have this talk, one of the reasons why she could enchant me was by saying that Shriyam has some real in-depth understanding and ways of explaining about consciousness, and I could just understand the periphery of what his knowledge is today, but I am sure that I am going to follow up with him, and we are also sure that WHO in future through the SDS department, our director is here, will take up activities which will help us in following up what Shriyam had stated here. We will probably try to find out how well-being could be accomplished through yoga as a tool, or well-being could be accomplished through improving consciousness of people who is working within the UN environment, which are questions which have come over here. But coming back to what I should be saying, not coming back to my responsibility, I would like to thank Shriyam for having traveled all this way and being here and given us his wisdom. Thank you so much, Shriyam, for being here. I would like to thank His Excellency the Ambassador Sri Rajiv Chandra and Madam Shalini Chandra for having been an enthusiast and being here throughout the time. In fact, it is His Excellency the Ambassador had a very important meeting happening at the UN HRC, and he agreed to come in spite of that. I know that he has a lot of interest in yoga, and I'm sure that his interest in yoga had been of great help in promoting the activities related to yoga in Geneva and of course in WHO also. I would also like to thank all of you here who had been present here, and we would also consider that this is a good opportunity to meet all of you, but at the same time, if you have more questions, you can still keep on putting it in the pigeonhole, and we might try to transfer or send it across to Shriyam's organization. Thank you so much.